Hey my friends, welcome back to the channel. I know it has been a while, but today we're going to dive into what my running costs are for my reef tank, and can this YouTube channel I have pay for those maintenance or running costs. So we're going to talk about how much this channel is actually making. And it may be interesting to you, it may not. You may be more interested in knowing about the tank, and we'll talk about it, but you can see here, it's not doing well. I've had a rough go the last month or two. Terrible algae outbreak, and also, as you can see here, the tank's very cloudy. I've just dosed it with Interceptor. I found that I had white bugs after noticing a few corals starting to slowly die at the base. So we'll do a brief update on the tank, but we're going to dive into the cost of running the tank and how much my YouTube channel makes. Stay tuned. Okay, let's take a look at this coral. I was slowly watching this coral, and you can see at the very base a little bit of white dead skeleton. So some tissues falling off, slow tissue necrosis, and I couldn't figure out why. And I just slowly watched this coral kind of recede over a week or two. And then at night, and I didn't pick it up on camera, but at night with the flashlight, I was again observing and obsessing over it because I'm kind of OCD with that. And I found little white bugs on the coral. And so I knew, okay, here we go. I'm going to probably have to dose Interceptor, which I haven't dosed in years. I used to dose it for red bugs, but white bugs are a little harder to get rid of from my understanding, so I upped the dose to about 4 times as much as you normally would for red bugs, and I've done it for 3 rounds, 1 week apart. So January, February has been kind of rough for the tank. So let's talk about any negative effects of dosing Interceptor. I didn't lose any corals. Yeah, like this gold hammer here, it's not looking too happy. It's probably trying to ingest some of that medicine, but it was fine. It survived. Things bounced back within a day or two, so it wasn't too bad. Nothing died in terms of corals. Here's my fighting conch. Um, at night, after I dose, like its eyes are just kind of flowing in the flow. Like it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit trippy, a little bit weird. I thought I might lose him, so that was kind of concerning. But he actually pulled through. He just was kind of a little bit drunk there or something for a while. Um, the Stylophora, not happy. Polyps in, things aren't doing well with it after dosing, but it bounced back. So a few corals looked a little, annoyed, a little ticked off after dosing. Some corals actually had nice polyp extension. One negative I noticed is I saw a dramatic decrease in my pH, and I closed off the air to the skimmer. I let water still run through it, but I closed the air off to it, and I think it made my pH a little low, and I didn't like that. I felt uncomfortable with that, so I tried the next go around. I found this little auto top-off reservoir tank that came with the tank, and I just left the skimmer on with air, took the cup off, and it foams and makes a mess all over your stand. So I just covered it with this little tank. So a pro tip, perhaps, leave your skimmer on if you can. You'll keep that pH up in the water with some oxygen in it. So, what were actually my losses? Well, Interceptor, any crustacean, any crab, the pods, are gone. I lost those. And the white bugs are gone. I just finished my third dose. But, I had a couple hermits I missed. I tried to pull out, but these two guys I lost with dosing Interceptor directly to the display tank. So that's one thing to be mindful of is try to pull your crabs and your crustaceans out. You're gonna lose your pods too. And here's my fighting conch. He's pulled through. He's looking a little better the next day. So enough about my tank's troubles. We're on the mend. As you can see, I think a couple of those video shots, I've got a green wiry algae. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce its appropriate name, but I've done a lot of research. It's a difficult algae to beat, but I'm going to beat it. So I've already have a plan in place, and I got to get the interceptor out of the tank so I can get my cleanup crew back up to par and get some hermits. I think that'll help, and then get some nutrients under control. So I'm dealing with algae too. So growth has kind of slowed with the interceptor, and things are kind of, we're in survival mode. Okay, so that's been discouraging, but it's part of the hobby, and I'm hanging in there, and I think I'm gonna come out on top in a couple weeks here. So let's shift gears and talk about, what are the running costs of a reef tank or my reef tank. And these are, running costs. To me, these are the things that you have like a subscription for. These are the things you kind of hate to keep spending money on. And I made a brief list here of what I frequently have to be paying for to keep my tank running. Electricity, right off the bat, I think on average my bill has gone up about $50 a month. So not terrible, but clearly an expense. I'm a believer in water changes, and salt can be expensive. I mean, Instant Ocean, you can get a bucket for, 50, $60, I think. And I do run Instant Ocean. I also have been running Reef crystals, but I just picked up actually a bucket of Tropic Marin Pro Reef salt, which was a lot more expensive. So I'm playing around with different salts just for fun, but that is definitely an expense. I run two part. I use ESV, and to pick up a gallon of two part, it's about $40. I recall with tax and stuff. I frequently have to buy food for your coral and your fish. Some people aren't believers in feeding coral; they just feed their fish, and the fish feed the coral, and so you could save a little bit there. But I find myself kind of doing buying different foods for fun and experimenting. Test kits, about $40 per month for me, and that kind of increased recently. I actually picked up a Trident in January, and those reagents, kind of a subscription there. Not super cheap, but it has been nice, being able to watch my parameters a little more closely, especially alkalinity. Picking up calibration solutions is another thing I often do. RODI your membrane and your filters. To get all the filters and a membrane for my system is about $100 total. Now, depending on how bad your water is, you don't necessarily have to change these out often, right? I mean, the membrane, people can go quite a while. I tend to, I'm a little bit more conservative. I like to change it out every year. I just, having clean water is the most important to me. So I change my membranes out at least once a year, and the filters I change out probably every 3 to 4 months. So definite expense there. And then we have bulb changes, and some of you are probably laughing at me and like, oh, this guy's old school. He's got to change bulbs still. Yeah, I get it. I just love metal halides, and so I'm kind of a dinosaur, I suppose. I think there's been a few comments about that. I'll probably make a video on why I still run metal halides. I've actually ran tanks with LEDs, all T5s, sun power and metal halides in the past. Metal halides and T5s are just something I really enjoy, and so I choose to run them. But yeah, I got to pay for to replace those bulbs. So I usually go about a year. But to get the T5s and the metal halides replaced out, it's about $250 for me. So definite expense. So in summary, running a reef tank, once you buy everything, which is very expensive, I have a video on that, how much I paid for everything. It's not cheap to maintain. It does have some running costs. Here right now, this is kind of a trend. This is how much my YouTube channel, my small channel, how much revenue I've made in the last 28 days. So about the last month, about $79. So yeah, that's probably paying for my electricity and helping maybe offset the cost of the food a little bit, but it's by far nowhere near covering total costs for maintenance. So I think I still have a ways to go with my channel, but that is by no means a reason I started this channel. First of all, it's fun. I find enjoyment in creating these videos. But second of all, when I started back up reefing again after we moved and got settled, I just felt this obligation that I need to share my experiences with others because it's such a hard hobby and there's so much turnover and people get in and then they get out a year later because of frustration and challenges they encounter. And so I just felt this obligation and sense of responsibility that I need to kind of share what I know and maybe it would help others out and stick in the hobby a little longer and grow the hobby. So right here, this is my total revenue since my channel was monetized back in about March of 2023. So almost a year. $749. So that's awesome to me. I mean, I'm doing something I love. I'm putting in some energy, on the weekends to make these videos, and I hope they're useful. I think people are getting help from them. I'm being, you guys are returning some favor to me. You're helping, pay for my old metal halide bulbs I'm still trying to track down. So anyways, folks, thanks again for tuning in to this video and kind of hearing out some frustrations I'm having with the tank and seeing how much a small reefing YouTube channel can make. And does it offset some of those costs of maintaining a reef tank? And it sure does. I'm going to keep trying to grow the channel. I appreciate your support. It's helping me maintain the tank and keeps me motivated and inspired and getting through some of these hard times. Take care, folks. Good luck with your tanks. Happy reefing. We'll see you all in the next one.